All right, let's dive in. Today, we're getting up close and personal with how animals, make more animals.
More animals, huh? Sounds intriguing.
It is. We've got a whole stack of research here about animal reproduction, and trust me,
Uh-oh, going beyond the birds and the bees, are we?
way beyond. We're talking diagrams, different species, even a bit about cloning.
Cloning. Now that's getting high-tech.
It is. It's amazing, really, all the ways animals reproduce.
It really is. It speaks volumes about how life has evolved and adapted over millions of years.
Totally. So we're going to tackle some big questions today, like what are the main ways animals reproduce?
Okay,
How does that whole fertilization thing actually work?
the mechanics of it all. Fascinating stuff.
It is. And of course, we can't forget about those crazy transformations some animals go through,
Yeah,
Metamorphosis,
Uh.
always a crowd pleaser.
for sure. But first things first, let's start with the basics, right?
Absolutely. So at the most basic level, there are two ways animals reproduce,
Mm-hmm.
sexually and asexually. Okay, so sexual reproduction, that's what we humans do, and lots of other animals.
Right, think males and females, the whole shebang.
But what's happening at, like, the cellular level?
Well, it boils down to specialized cells called gametes.
the gametes.
Yep. The male gamete is the sperm, and the female gamete is the egg.
Okay, got it.
And here's where it gets interesting. These gametes, they're what we call haploid cells.
Haploid cells. Now, there's a word I haven't heard in a while. Remind me what that means again.
Sure, haploid cells, they only have half the number of chromosomes as regular body cells.
Ah, okay.
So when a sperm and an egg, they combine during fertilization,
Yeah,
you create a zygote.
a zygote.
Exactly. And a zygote is the very first cell of a brand new organism.
Oh, right. It has the full set of chromosomes, half from mom and half from dad.
That's the key.
It's like you're putting together two halves of a puzzle to make a whole picture.
Perfect analogy. And that's one reason why sexual reproduction is so powerful. It leads to incredible genetic diversity.
Because each offspring is a unique combination of genes from both parents.
Exactly. Every single one a unique blend.
That makes sense. Speaking of unique, though, one thing that always blows my mind is the difference in egg size between species.
Oh yeah, talk about a range.
I mean, you've got tiny human eggs on one hand, and then you've got those gigantic ostrich eggs.
Ostrich eggs, those are impressive. They're like, what, the size of a small grapefruit?
Yeah, something like that. It's wild. Why such a huge difference, though?
Well, a few reasons, actually. The size of the egg, it usually reflects how much yolk it's got inside. Yolk provides nutrients for the embryo as it's growing.
Oh, right. So bigger eggs have more yolk to fuel a longer developmental period outside the mother's body.
You got it. So a tiny egg, like a human egg,
Yeah.
it doesn't need as much yolk. The embryo is developing inside the mother's womb where it's getting constant nourishment.
Makes sense.
But an ostrich egg, well, that needs enough yolk to keep the chick going for weeks until it hatches.
Weeks. That's a long time to be living off yolk. So it's all linked to their environment and how they live. Fascinating stuff.
Absolutely. It really highlights how diverse reproductive strategies can be.
All right, so we've talked gametes. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does the sperm actually find its way to the egg? It's like a microscopic odyssey.
It really is. And sperm cells, they are perfectly designed for this mission. They've got this distinct structure.
Oh, tell me more.
So you've got the head, that's where all the genetic material is packed.
Okay.
Then there's this middle piece, it's full of mitochondria, that's the powerhouse providing energy.
To keep swimming.
You got it. And of course, there's that whip-like tail. That's what propels the sperm forward.
Ah, the tail. It's like this tiny little outboard motor pushing it through the female reproductive tract.
Exactly. But here's a question for you.
Okay, hit me.
If only one sperm is needed to fertilize the egg, why are millions produced? Seems a bit excessive, right?
It does. Why so many?
Well, think of it like a microscopic race, but with some serious obstacles.
A sperm obstacle course.
Kinda.
Mm.
Many of those sperm, they'll never even reach the egg. They might get lost. They might run out of energy.
Oh, no.
Sometimes they even get attacked by the female's immune system. It's rough out there.
So it's survival of the fittest, even on a cellular level.
You got it. That's why having millions of sperm in the running is so important.
Increases the odds that at least one will make it to the egg.
Bingo. It's all about increasing the chances of success.
Wow. Makes you appreciate the little guys, huh?
It really does.
So while all this is happening, where is the egg hanging out?
Well, the egg, it starts its journey in the ovaries.
Right.
Then it gets released into a structure called the oviduct.
Oviduct.
Yep. That's usually where fertilization happens.
So if a sperm makes it through all those obstacles, it reaches the oviduct.
Yeah.
And if it manages to get through the egg's outer layer,
If it does.
then the two nuclei fuse, combining their genetic material.
Exactly. It's a microscopic dance, really.
And it's crazy to think that this fusion of two tiny cells creates a single cell, the zygote.
That one cell has the potential to develop into an entire organism. It's remarkable.
Absolutely mind-blowing. So that's fertilization, but I know there are different ways it can happen, right?
You're right, there are. We tend to think of fertilization happening inside the body.
Right, like with us.
Exactly. Humans, mammals, that's internal fertilization.
Makes sense.
But lots of animals, especially ones that live in water,
Okay.
they do something called external fertilization.
External. So the sperm and egg meet outside the body.
You got it. It's a bit of a gamble, you could
A
say,
gamble.
but it works for a lot of species. Fish, amphibians, for example.
Oh, right. Like the female releases her eggs into the water,
Right,
and the male releases his sperm nearby.
exactly. Hoping enough of them will find the eggs.
It's a bit of a chance encounter then.
It is. You need a lot of luck for that to work out.
I guess that's why they produce so many eggs. Increases the odds.
Exactly. It's a numbers game, for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so fertilization's done.
One way or another.
What happens next? How does that single-celled zygote, turn into an animal?
That's where development comes in.
Oh, right.
It's pretty magical, really.
I bet.
The zygote, it starts dividing super fast.
Dividing.
Yeah, through mitosis, creating tons of new cells.
Okay.
And then those cells start to specialize. They form different tissues, organs, all that good stuff.
So that's the embryo.
You got it. A tiny cluster of cells with the blueprint for a whole animal.
It's incredible when you think about it. Where does this embryo hang out, though?
Well, that depends if we're talking oviparous or viviparous animal.
Wait, those words ring a bell.
Yeah.
But I'm blanking. Can you remind me what they mean?
Sure. Oviparous animals, they lay eggs. Think
Yeah.
birds, reptiles, insects, lots of fish.
Okay.
Their embryos develop inside that protective shell.
Outside the mother's body.
Exactly.
Wow.
But viviparous animals, they give birth to live young.
Ah, like mammals.
Yep.
Yep. We're a prime example. The embryo develops inside the mother's uterus, nice and safe, getting nourishment.
Until they're ready to be born.
Exactly.
Okay, that's coming back to me now. It's amazing, though, all the different ways animals do this whole reproduction thing.
It really is. It shows you how much variation there is in nature.
Absolutely. And it's not just about where the embryo develops, right?
Yep. There's a ton of variation in how long it takes to develop, too.
Oh, right. Like, a chick takes about 3 weeks in the egg,
Yeah, something like that.
but a human pregnancy, that's, what, 9 months?
Around there, yeah.
Why such a difference? What influences that?
It's a mix of things, really. The size and complexity of the animal, how much yolk there is in the egg,
Oh, right, the yolk.
and of course the environment plays a role, too.
Okay, so lots of factors.
Lots of factors. Some animals have shorter development times to avoid predators.
Or to deal with harsh conditions?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all about survival in the end.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's amazing how evolution has fine-tuned all of this. It really is. It's incredible how life finds a way.
Speaking of finding a way, we can't forget about metamorphosis.
Ah, yes, metamorphosis. The ultimate makeover.
It's wild. Some animals go through these insane transformations as they grow.
It really is like a sci-fi movie.
Like, think of a frog, right? It starts as a tiny little tadpole,
Swimming around.
breathing with gills,
Yeah.
and then bam, metamorphosis hits. It loses its tail,
Grows legs.
starts breathing air.
It's a whole new creature. And it's not just frogs.
Well,
Lots of insects do it, too. Butterflies, moths, they all have these dramatic changes.
it's mind-blowing. Why even have that separate tadpole stage, though? Why not just develop straight into a frog?
That's a good question. There are benefits to having that larval stage.
Oh, like what?
Well, sometimes the larva eats different food than the adult.
So they're not competing?
Exactly. Reduces competition.
Smart.
And sometimes the larva is better at spreading out.
Spreading out.
Yeah, it helps the species colonize new areas.
So it's like two different survival strategies packed into one life cycle.
You could say that. It's pretty clever.
It really is.
Oh,
Okay, so we've covered sexual reproduction pretty well.
From gametes to fertilization, the whole 9 yards.
But there's another side to this story, right?
There is asexual reproduction.
Ah, yes. Going solo.
Exactly. Sexual reproduction is super common, but asexual reproduction has its own perks.
Especially in certain environments, right?
You got it. So let's recap. What is asexual reproduction again?
Well, it only needs one parent.
One parent, that's right.
And the offspring are basically clones of the parent.
Genetically identical copies. It's like hitting copy-paste on yourself.
No need to find a mate. Sounds pretty efficient.
It is. But how does it work?
That's the question.
Well, there are a few ways. One example is budding.
Budding. Yeah.
You see this in creatures like hydra.
Hydra.
Yeah, those tiny little freshwater animals.
Okay.
A new hydra grows as a little bud on the parent's body.
A little mini-me hydra.
Exactly. Eventually, it detaches and becomes its own independent organism.
Fascinating. Any other examples?
Oh, yeah. Another common one is binary fission.
Binary fission. That sounds intense.
It's actually pretty straightforward. You see it a lot in single-celled organisms like amoeba.
Amoeba. Okay.
Basically, the cell copies its genetic material, then splits into...
Two identical daughter cells.
Boom. Instant twins.
Wow. That sounds super efficient, especially for growing a population fast.
It is, but there's a trade-off.
Oh, what's that?
Asexual reproduction, it sacrifices genetic diversity.
Ah, that makes sense. Sexually reproducing animals are mixing their genes all the time.
They are. That helps them adapt to changes, resist diseases, all that.
So it's a balance, huh?
It is.
Yeah.
Efficiency versus adaptability, it depends on the situation.
Makes you wonder if there are any animals that can do both. Switch it up depending on what's going on.
You know, there are. Some animals can actually do that.
Really? That's awesome.
It is. Some starfish, for example. Yep.
They can reproduce asexually by fragmentation,
Nah.
breaking off a piece of their body.
And that piece grows into a new starfish.
Yep. But they can also reproduce sexually if conditions are right.
Wow. That's incredible. It's like having a reproductive backup plan.
Exactly. They're incredibly adaptable creatures.
They are. But you know what else is incredible? Cloning. Cloning. It's like sci-fi turned reality.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we've got this research about Dolly the sheep, the first cloned mammal.
It was groundbreaking, really.
I bet. It must have opened up so many possibilities and, of course, sparked some serious ethical debates.
Oh, absolutely. Dolly's story, it really captured the world's imagination.
But also made people think about the implications of cloning. I mean, imagine the potential for, human cloning.
That's where things get complex, for sure. Suddenly you're dealing with questions of identity, individuality.
What it even means to be human.
Exactly. Big philosophical questions, no easy answers.
Definitely. Okay, so shifting gears a bit. One thing I kept noticing as I was going through this research.
Yeah. There's so much variation in how many offspring animals have.
That's an interesting point. Some have tons, some have just a few.
Right. Like you think about frogs, fish, they lay hundreds, even thousands of eggs.
That's a lot of eggs.
But then you've got chickens. They lay one egg at a time. Why such a huge difference?
It's all about strategy, really.
Right.
Think about where those eggs are laid, what the environment's like.
Okay.
Animals that use external fertilization, like fish and amphibians, their eggs are out in the open.
Exposed to predators, the elements, all that.
Exactly. So it's a numbers game. More eggs means a better chance that at least some will survive.
Makes sense. The more the merrier, especially when the odds are stacked against you.
Right. But for animals with internal fertilization,
Like chickens, mammals.
yeah, their embryos are more protected, either inside the mother or in a tough shell.
So the survival rate is higher? They don't need to produce as many?
That's the idea. It's all about allocating resources efficiently.
It's fascinating, really. Okay, last question before we wrap up this deep dive. We've talked about sexual and asexual reproduction. But are there any animals that could do both?
You know, that's what's so amazing about nature, always surprises you. There are some incredibly adaptable creatures out there.
Oh, like what?
Circus starfish, for example.
Garfish.
Yeah. They can reproduce asexually through fragmentation.
Right, where a piece breaks off and grows into a new starfish.
Exactly. But they can also switch to sexual reproduction if conditions are right.
So they've got options. They can choose the best strategy depending on what's happening around them. That's incredible.
It is. It highlights the power of evolution to come up with these amazing solutions for survival.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have, from the microscopic world of sperm and eggs to metamorphosis, even cloning. It's been quite a journey.
It has.
Yeah.
We've learned about the different ways animals make more animals, the incredible variety out there.
It really shows you the diversity of life on Earth and how it's all connected.
It does. And for everyone listening, remember, this deep dive was just the start. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep being amazed by the wonders of the natural world. Who knows what incredible discoveries are waiting out there?
Exactly. There's always something new to uncover, some new mystery to solve. That's the beauty of science.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's all for today, folks. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of animal reproduction.